Hello and welcome to Friday Live. I am Amanda Farmer, and we are going out live to the Your Strata Property Facebook page, also out to LinkedIn. We're going out to YouTube. How are you all today? I'm really excited because I've got at least a full hour with you live today. This is our Friday Live segment. I have been traveling a little bit the last few weeks, had some meetings, and haven't been able to meet you all here for a Friday Live for a little while. So instead, we've been doing our short 10-minute Ask Amanda Now segments, which have been fun. We've done those the last 2 weeks, and you'll see the replays of those here on the Facebook page and also on LinkedIn, on YouTube as well. They're great, but I love being with you for and as long as I can on a live to do a deep dive into our week in Strata. I can see lots of you coming in already live. Feel free to give me a hello here in the comments. If you're watching the replay back, give me a hello as well. How has your week been? It's been a little bit chilly, hasn't it? I'm going to acknowledge that straight up. On the east coast of Australia, we have all been a little bit chilly. I can tell you something funny story that goes on in my family. I live in a place where it is usually in winter particularly cold. So I'm talking frost in the morning, often below zero. And I have a 9-year-old son. We have 2 dogs, and I like to walk to school. We live about 15 minutes from the primary school where my son goes to school, and we walk to school. And that's a habit that we formed when we lived in the city. We live in the country now. We're in Central West New South Wales. We would always walk to school, walk the dogs. And when we moved to the country, I said, we are still going to be walking to school. My son complains about it. He's tired. He's running late, doesn't want to walk. But the dogs have got to walk. I got to walk. So we do it. And we even do it in winter. And I remember last year it being quite cold, maybe 2 degrees, maybe 3 degrees. And we'd get all bundled up, put our beanies on, put our gloves on, jackets on, and walk to school. Well, this week we got up in the morning, and I think Tuesday, Wednesday, it was below zero. It was -2, -3. And it was getting to 8 o'clock, 8:15, 8:30. It wasn't warming up. And my son is looking at me saying, Mom, are we really going to walk to school when it's below zero? And I relented. I said, no, okay. The rule is if it's below zero, we don't have to walk to school. So we didn't walk to school this week. I think by Thursday, yesterday, it was a little bit warmer. We did get in the car and drive. But then, of course, I had to deal with the ice on the car windscreen. So had to get that exercise down. There is an art form to that, as my friend Michelle will let you know. But yes, cold week, and I hope that you are wrapped up. I can see your hellos coming on in here now. Cheryl is here saying, hello, Amanda, with my bunch of flowers. Thank you very much, Cheryl. Good to see you. Hey, I can see Ash Roy. How you doing, Ash? Haven't seen you around for a little while. Hope everything is going well. Good to see you here. Jai is here saying hello, Amanda. Hello to you, Jai. Anthony is here tuning in from LinkedIn. That's awesome. Great to see you, Anthony. Michelle is here indeed, and she's telling us that winter doesn't formally start until the solstice on the 21st of June. The best is yet to come. Good to know. Good to know. Thank you, Michelle. Melissa is here saying hi. Hi, Melissa. Yes, Ash, awesome. Glad to hear you're good. Ron is here, and it's Ron's first time. Mwah! Welcome, Ron, to Friday Live. It is wonderful to have you here with us. If it's anyone else's first time, drop me a comment letting me know. More than welcome. We are in for a ride. There's lots to cover today. probably because we haven't had a Friday Live for a few weeks, but there's also a fair bit going on in our world. And I have a special guest for you today. I will be welcoming in a little while our special guest for today. His name is Tim Fuller. If you have seen the emails and here on the page where I was letting you all know about today's event, you'll have a little sneak peek at what Tim might be sharing with us. How many of you have managed to listen to this week's podcast episode number 317? Solo episode from me, which those solo eps come around once in a while when there is something important, I think, to share with you and to spend a bit more time on. Disability access and discrimination in Strata. That's what I talked about in episode number 317. Rochelle has the link here for you. I'm just noticing, Rochelle, before you post the link text in there is a typo in my run sheet. So just have a look at that for me, or post it with a typo. It's all good. We'll know what it means. The reason that I brought this particular episode to you this week is because there was a fair bit of discussion generated. Some of you may remember, may have seen a few weeks ago from a story on A Current Affair. This is a story where I appeared and gave some expert commentary as a strata lawyer about a 92-year-old wheelchair-bound man's inability to access his apartment because he couldn't get up the stairs. And he was requiring his owner's corporation to install a chairlift. This is a chairlift that had been paid for by the Department of Veterans Affairs, and he was having trouble getting his owner's corporation to move quickly on that request. So I posted some of my own comments and also the link to watch that story on LinkedIn. And that in itself generated a fair bit of discussion about whether our owners' corporations indeed have to do work on their common property to facilitate access by those with a disability or those who need ramps or lifts or chairlifts or other access measures installed. And it caused me to go back and revisit some of the relevant legislation across New South Wales, Queensland, Victoria, and also have a reread of a fantastic article written by Kathy Sherry when she was an associate professor with the Faculty of Law at the University of New South Wales. Kathy's now with Macquarie University, new appointment there. And in the podcast episode this week, I revisit some of the principles established by our cases, some of the excellent points made by Kathy in her article. So I do encourage you, if you're interested in this topic, and let me tell you, if you are a strata manager, if you are a committee member, if you're a resident in a multi-story apartment building in particular, it's a good idea to be across these issues and to understand what an owner's corporation, body corporate in Queensland, obligations are when it comes to facilitating access for all walks of life, all different people with different needs. So have a listen to that podcast episode. I do want to point out Henry's comment here on the page earlier in the week when I posted the link to go and have a listen to the podcast on Thursday, yesterday, I think it was. Henry posted a comment and he said, discrimination law should and must apply to strata. People with disabilities have the right to housing choice as much as non-disabled people. The concept of universal accessibility needs to apply in regards to planning and building laws and regulations as well. Thank you for that comment, Henry. I do support that direction as well and support your thoughts there. Thank you for sharing those. I know that you are in Victoria, and on the podcast I do talk about a leading Victorian Supreme Court case on this question of disability access in our strata buildings. Okay, few more comments coming on through. I think I'm seeing here. Amanda says she's having difficulty connecting. I hope that's working out okay for you, Amanda, and I hope I'm coming through loud and clear for everybody. Ryan has said, "Hi, Amanda, long-time listener of your podcast, first time Friday Live." Great. Thank you so much for saying hi, Ryan, and welcome to Friday Live. And Zlata is here saying hello. Hello, Zlata. Okie dokie. Moving right along, I have a webinar next week. Next Wednesday, the 22nd of June, we're going to be kicking off at midday. This is what I call a pro webinar. And I'll tell you a little bit about pro webinars and pro membership very, very shortly. This webinar is called How to Set Up a Successful Virtual Team. Now, when I started the podcast way back in 2016, I knew that I would not be able to keep up this weekly commitment without help. And back then, it was just a podcast. It wasn't Friday Live and Ask Amanda Now and LinkedIn and YouTube and Instagram. Have you found our Instagram account? There's stuff happening over there on Instagram at Your Strata Property. You want to go check that out. But just with a podcast, a weekly podcast, and running a busy legal practice, I knew that it wasn't something that I could keep up without having a strong team around me. So I started researching virtual staff. What is a virtual staff member? Are they real people? Yes, they are. Where are they? What do they do? How does it all work? And this process of educating myself about having a virtual team member led me to find Rochelle. And Rochelle is still with us, as many of you will know today. And Christina joined us this year. Both Rochelle and Christina are in the Philippines. And there is no way that I could do what I do without their support. And over the years, many professionals have asked me about the setup of my virtual team. I have noticed these questions becoming more and more common, particularly from strata managers, as you try to find creative ways to deal with recruitment and retention challenges. So, with more strata managers asking me about virtual teams, and I'm seeing some of you now jump into that world and build virtual teams, I decided that I'd put together a webinar to help explain my experience of putting together a virtual team, managing a virtual team, give whatever guidance I can on a topic that might seem a little scary, a little daunting at first. So this webinar will be held next Wednesday, the 22nd of June. It is a live webinar. It will run for about 60 minutes. It is primarily for strata managers, but I do know if there are some clever committee members out there, forward thinking, I call you, wanting to learn more about setting up and managing a virtual or an offshore team from people who are already doing it successfully, then you might want to jump in on this webinar as well. So special guests, Natalie Fitzgerald, Strata Manager from Genesis Strata Management, setting up her own virtual team at the moment, and Sean Brown from Strata Staff. We're going to talk about why Strata professionals are making the decision to go virtual, how we train and manage a virtual team, the 3 biggest mistakes you can make with a virtual team and how to avoid them. And we'll answer your questions on the webinar as well. Now, this is not one of my usual webinars. You've heard me say that it is a pro webinar. And a pro webinar is more in-depth than other webinars that you might have attended with me or others. There's lots of practical how-to information backed up by real life, real examples from special guests, some insights into my own internal office processes. Our property professionals who are attending the webinar can claim CPD points, and the webinar replay gets banked to our CPD library inside our pro membership. So the webinar is free for our pro members. And if you're a pro member, you would have got an email or 2 from me this week giving you the link to register for that webinar next Wednesday, 22nd of June at midday. If you are a member, not quite a pro member, but a member inside our community, the webinar is available for you. It is $97 to join us on the webinar, and you'll get the replay as well. If you are not a member, you can definitely join us. The price is $227. Don't go and pay that price. You don't need to do that. You can actually join the membership for just $47, and then you'll be able to access that member pricing for the pro webinar. Okay, so there's your little tip. I don't want anyone paying full price for this webinar. There's no need to. We have links here for you. If you are a member, Rochelle has a members only link to register for the webinar. That's going to be in the comments here for you. If you're not a webinar, I hope nobody's a webinar. If you're not a member and you want to access that member pricing for our webinar, then head over to stratamembership.com. I think I said $47, $49. $49 to access our membership, and discounted pricing to our pro webinars is just one of the many, many benefits that our members experience. So stratamembership.com to see what's included in our membership, what's happening behind those doors. The doors are open, not always open, but they are open now, won't be for much longer. And if you're thinking about membership, then joining us now so you can get in on that pro webinar next week is an excellent idea. Alrighty. I'm just going to take a sip of water here. Getting a bit dry now, cold weather. Okay. Lots of you here live hanging on out for our special guest. I am sure I will bring him on very, very soon. But what I want to do first is let you know about some proposed new legislation in New South Wales. This is relevant to strata managers, to strata committees. This is a proposed amendment to the Property and Stock Agents Regulation. So we have a Property and Stock Agents Act that applies to licensed real estate agents, strata managing agents, strata assistants, as well as stock and station agents. They are regulated by the Property and Stock Agents Act, and that legislation is supported by the Property and Stock Agents Regulation. Now, the current regulation is due to expire on the 1st of September 2022, and there is a proposed new regulation that has been released, and there is a public consultation draft available for you to have a look at. The reason that I am sharing that with you today is because there is an interesting change proposed that affects our strata managing agents. Overall, the regulation is being modernized, it's being made more clear, it is amending some old terminology. I was looking at the current regulation today and it still refers to the Strata Schemes Management Act of 1996. So that hasn't been changed for quite some time. So we're fixing up all of those things, but also including some new arrangements to make it easier for strata schemes and community schemes to access records from their strata managing agents. Now, Rochelle has a link here for you to a website, New South Wales government website, where you can access the what's it called? Regulatory impact statement. The regulatory impact statement that will summarize the changes to the regulation and also the draft regulation, and gives you access to have your say, to comment on the draft regulation. Now, the part of the regulation that I wanted to make sure that you're aware of that is impacting our strata managing agents and your access to books and records, I'm actually going to show it to you here on the screen. So Rochelle has the link that will take you over to this document. But for now, I'm going to show you, just one sec. I think I will share it this way. Make that bigger for you. Oh, am I with you? I feel like I jumped around a bit there. Here I am. You want to have a look at proposed new Schedule 4 to the Property and Stock Agents Regulation 2022, rules specific to strata managing agents and assistant strata managing agents. I believe this is currently Schedule 6. It's going to become Schedule 4, and I've highlighted here on the screen the new addition to this clause that is being proposed. So you'll see this is about cooperation when it comes to records, access, and transfer. Already existing is this clause 1. If an agent is acting on behalf of a person in the management of property and is advised by another agent that the new agent has been engaged to act, the agent must cooperate with the new agent in relation to access to the records by making the records reasonably available according to law, facilitate the transfer of management functions. That's already the law. I know because I hear from many of you, both agents and owners, that this is often a difficult process. Not exactly sure why it's a difficult process, but I do know that some buildings unfortunately experience significant delays to the transfer of records when they appoint a new managing agent. It shouldn't be happening, but it is happening. Now, the new section to be inserted here in this clause says that if an agent's acting on behalf of an owner's corporation and is advised by the owner's corporation that the agent is no longer to act on their behalf and no other agent is being appointed, then the agent must still cooperate and make records available, provide access to administrative and capital works funds, and facilitate the transfer of management functions. Now, you'll read in this regulatory impact statement that this insertion is being proposed because owners corporations are advising that they're finding it difficult when they are switching to self-management or when they don't yet have a new agent that they want to appoint or they don't know who that is. They're finding it difficult to get their hands on A, their records, and B, their trust account funds. So this is being proposed in the Property and Stock Agents Regulation to require managing agents, even if they're not contacted by another agent, to transfer records and to provide access to funds. Interesting. It was proposed in our the review of our 2015 Strata Schemes Management Act that this was an issue and that there should be legislative intervention to deal with this. And this is therefore being proposed in response to that. So that is probably, on my reading, the most important thing to be aware of with this new Property and Stock Agents Regulation or amendments to it. And if you want to have a view on that, have a say on that, then check out the link that we have put here in the comments for you, where you can go over and give your view to New South Wales government on those changes. Okay, we are about to get to our special guest. We absolutely are. I want to let you know before I forget, however, I promised you this in today's email. I am going to be, I was going to say live. I'm live right now. I'm going to be live in person in Sydney in just a few weeks. And I would love for you to join me. I am a special guest at an event that is being run by Waverley Council in Sydney, all about how to ease the pain of moving in or out of a strata building in a way that reduces stress, reduces damage to the common property, reduces waste, illegal dumping. I know that so many of our buildings, not just in Sydney's eastern suburbs, which is where Waverley is, but all around Sydney, other states no doubt as well, experience difficulties when new residents move in and residents move out. And that's something that our local councils have recognised and are wanting to help our apartment buildings with. So some of you may remember that there was a webinar earlier this year that I hosted together with the Western Sydney Regional Organisation of Councils, WESROC, the Smooth Moves webinar. We had over 220 registered to attend that webinar. It was a fantastic event. This is your live in-person version of the Smooth Moves webinar. This is a free event. It is for residents, for committees, for strata managers, for building managers to help more effectively manage that move in, move out process. I will give you my tips, what I share with my clients, the resources that I share with my clients to help them smooth out this process, prevent unnecessary waste, avoid illegal dumping. I've also been asked by Waverley Council to give special attention to the laws about short-term letting in New South Wales. So this wasn't in the Smooth Moves webinar for Western Sydney region, but this will be at our event, our in-person event that's coming up very soon. I'll give you the date. I'll give you the registration link. I'm going to be talking about our short-term letting laws, demystifying those for you and explaining what it is that our residential apartment buildings in New South Wales can and can't do when it comes to short-term letting. The event is on Thursday, the 7th of July. Thursday, the 7th of July. It is at the Margaret Whitlam Centre in Waverley Park in Waverley, Sydney. We start at 6 p.m. registration for a 6:30 p.m. start. We have very limited space for those attending this event. So I want you to jump in and register now while you can. Rochelle has the registration link here for you. It is via the Eventbrite page for Waverley Council. Jump in there and get registered for the Smooth Moves in-person event for Waverley Council on Thursday, the 7th of July. I'm going to be spending an hour and a half with you in person, talking about the move in, move out process, what it is that we can be doing in our buildings to really harness the power that we have in those moments to meet new residents, to educate new residents, to make sure that they're armed with the knowledge and the tools that they need to live peacefully in our apartment buildings, to make our jobs easier as committee members, as strata managers, as building managers. And if you've ever been to one of my webinars or live events, you'll know that there's always special bonuses for those who attend. We actually have a couple of free bylaw templates for Waverley Council residents in particular. If you're a resident of Waverley Council, don't even think about it. You need to be at this event. Those resources will be available for you, but always something extra for everybody there, and plenty of time for Q&A. I always leave at least half an hour in my live events to answer your strata questions. So Q&A time there on that Thursday night. I'm excited, looking forward to coming to the big smoke, as I say, and seeing you all in person. I'd love to see the faces of these names that I see here on our webinars and on our live chats at that free Smooth Moves event on the 7th of July. Link there for you to register. Okay, Petra's come in and said good afternoon. Thank you very much, Petra. Good afternoon to you. All right, Ron is asking me a question here about, do you mainly work with strata managers or agents, or do you also assist owners? As an owner, is it worth my while to become a member of my... Absolutely, Ron. Owners are our number one community members. I actually don't take instructions to act for owners corporations, new owners corporations these days. I have my current owners corporation clients, but owners, educating owners, assisting owners is where my passion is, and my happy place where I like to be. So yes, definitely our online membership community is directed to owners, and there's plenty there for you. So happy to check in with you a little closer about that, Ron. Thank you very much for asking that question. I'm going to bring in our special guest. I told you we had so much to talk about today, a jam-packed Friday Live. Our special guest is Tim Fuller. Tim is the head of wealth at Strata Guardian. Having worked in financial services across several major national practices, boutique advisory firms, and investment companies for over 10 years, Tim now serves the Australian strata community. Tim is a qualified financial advisor and holds a Master's of Business Administration. Tim has been a previous guest on our podcast and also here on Friday Live. You can hear my chat with Tim in episode number 287, How to Invest Owners Corporation Funds. That's from about November last year, where Tim and I spoke about the power that the collective has to get better returns on funds invested. So you can defy the climate of what was then. What was then, we were talking about low interest rates, and you can supercharge your rainy day fund. Well, how the climate has changed since November last year. And to chat with us about that today is Tim Fuller. Hi, Tim.
Hello, Amanda. How are you going? Great to be back on the show.
I'm doing very well, and it's wonderful to have you back. Last time we talked, November last year, we were talking about the trouble with term deposits, the trouble with low interest rates. What other solutions do we have for our owners' corporations? I think our guests our listeners might know we're going to talk about something a little different today.
Absolutely, yeah. So much in the same way the seasons have changed, the tides have changed on interest rates as well. And I heard you say you were coming up to Sydney, and I'd love to get up there and have a chat. But you haven't sold the weather too well to me in New South Wales. Us being down here in freezing Melbourne, kind of sounds like it's same.
You're used to it. Don't complain. You're all smirking at us at the moment, going, "Oh, you're cold, are you?" Oh,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, look. We've had the coats out for a little while, but it has been a bitey one actually. So, but anyway, we digress. So rising interest rates. Should we chat about rising interest rates?
Let's do it, and let's do it with smiles on our faces and not tears in our eyes. I think that might be a different experience for some people at the moment. Tell me this: why are rising interest rates good for some strata communities?
Well, look, it's a really good question, and probably if we zoom out past Strata first, and then we'll sort of focus in on the Strata piece as well. But look, for mine, what it's indicating is a return to normalcy. That's what we're seeing now. Look, as a sort of a data point, the interesting thing is, and we have seen just recently a couple of what feels like supersized moves, I guess, from the Reserve Bank of Australia in 0.75 over a couple of months, so 0.25 in May and 0.5% just recently, a little bit of a surprising 0.5% in June, putting the rate at the moment to 0.85%. Now, what we've got to remember, though, is that it was actually at 0.75% before the pandemic started. So we're actually now just a whisper above where it was when sort of, I guess, in a way, things last felt normal prior to the pandemic. So that sort of puts it in a little bit of perspective. But of course, it doesn't change the fact that we haven't been in a rising rate environment for a very long time. It was November of 2010 was the last time that the RBA raised rates. I think we sort of spoke about this a little bit in the last show as well. And so we find ourselves in quite an interesting world. There's homeowners now that have never been in a rising rate environment. There's almost a generation that hasn't lived in a rising rate environment. Exactly. So, and so I guess there is, potentially a little bit of unease and uncertainty, perhaps, on where everything's going. But the good news is, I guess, for Strata is essentially that what it's meaning now is we're starting to see a return to normality, and probably even I'd probably even go a little bit further than that in term deposit rates and just cash at call rates as well. So. As for those that have been following it quite closely, there was basically something put in place by the RBA where they allowed very cheap borrowing to banks during the pandemic, which effectively shored up the financial services and banking side of Australia, which is undoubtedly a good thing to do, which has rolled off. And so what that's meant now is there are a lot of banks that are now having to go out to what we call the retail market, or out to you and I, and try and entice our money, which has meant that now it is just an incredibly rewarding space, I guess, in comparison to even just a couple of months ago in just the basic term deposit returns. And so for Strata and for people and for communities and committees that have been diligently saving away and have probably been less than enamoured, shall we say, with what they're getting on their savings, thankfully the tide has turned, and now actually things are actually looking very, very good, if I could put it that way. For those that are on the loan side, I guess, and obviously rising rates naturally for anyone with home loans or strata loans, a cause for concern, but we're not seeing huge lifts in the lending rate side just yet either. So it's sort of, there's obviously a tale of or two tales on both sides of the story, but certainly from a savings perspective, remarkable sort of difference between now and, as I said, a couple of months ago, which is incredible.
And you've mentioned there, Tim, strata communities that have money in the bank or that have some savings. And I'm not sure if it was in my chat with you, or it might have been a chat on the podcast with Rena. I made the flyaway comment, oh, I'm not sure. I'm not sure that there's too many buildings that actually have a lot of money lying around in their capital works funds or money to spare. Everybody's kind of leaving things down to the wire. And I was corrected, I think, by Rena and maybe some other strata managers, probably by you too, Tim, to say, no, actually, there are some really thriving communities out there that have their rainy day funds, that have been saving in accordance with their capital works plans, and that can really benefit from setting that money aside in a higher interest environment, and should be thinking about that.
Well, that's right, and obviously, and it's what's certainly been a prevailing issue of late, and part of the reason for the somewhat dramatic rate rises we've seen recently is inflation. So with buildings that are saving away diligently, and as you've correctly put, certainly the people that we speak to are in that space because they've got money to invest, and that's why they're talking to us, I guess. The inflation is a crucial one, and we're seeing it's not quite as bad as perhaps in other countries, but it's certainly high. It's higher than what the RBA would like in that sort of 2 to 3% band. It's significantly higher than that, sort of in the 5s and 6s. And you've got to also then weigh in the fact that there's different pockets of inflation as well, and certainly on the building supply side, it's by all reports dramatically higher, and of course that's often where these capital works funds being spent in building maintenance and supplies. So that's driving an impetus really is to start looking at what are we doing with the money, and obviously now with a number of banks that are out there chasing capital and doing what banks do. They need to borrow money off us in order to lend it out to their clients, and so they're enticing some pretty good rates of return over a number of different terms. Yeah.
So what is it that you're doing at Strata Guardian that has the attention, I think, of strata managers across Australia? I know you serve a number of different states. What is it that you're proposing our owners corporations and body corporates can do with these rainy day funds if they've got them?
Terrific, yeah. Look, and just on that, so we're able to service nationally under what we do, and we've got an online portal that makes it very easy from all corners. So look, basically, so in light of what's been happening in the term deposit space, essentially we've recently released a new service called Strata Term, which effectively is a portal, if you will, for owners corporations and body corporates through us to get access to up to 25 Australian banks, essentially. So we can now go to market across more or less, the major banks in Australia, and be able to assist in getting a good rate, or a market leading rate, I guess is a good way to put it. And also provide some value around the different terms as well. And it's quite fascinating. And once again, this goes back to the capital requirements of banks, where you start to get rises and falls over the various terms. So, you might find that a 9-month term pays upwards of 50% more than a 6-month term, for example, in the market. And so we can assist in, often people think, well, look, I'm rolling over a term deposit, a 1-year term deposit, I'll just go another 12-month term deposit. Obviously, with our ability to see the market, we can potentially provide some value if required, to say, well, look, there's better pricing, on either side potentially, and you might want to consider that and pick up. Could be 0.75% in some cases more than the dip perhaps in that timeline. So those are the two sort of, I guess, major major value adds that we can do. And then of course there's the administration side as well, where we're obviously looking after the banking relationships and being able to facilitate quickly and easily the setups of these term deposits.
Now we have a question that has come in bright and early here from Edward. It's a question that you and I have had before, Tim, when we've been having these discussions, I think, and it's a great one. I'm glad you've asked it, Edward. Is the interest income taxable as income for lot owners? Is it taxed in the hands of the lot owners? Can you answer that for us, Tim?
Certainly can. Yes, it's come up a number of times, and we can put a definitive no on that one, having assessed and checked out, and also obviously had some advice from federal tax law. There are, absolutely right, there are components of income that schemes and plans can derive from their building, which can fall into that taxable at a lot level bucket. But thankfully, interest from the financial capital, I guess, if you will, of the scheme or plan is not taxable at that lot level. It does fall under company tax, and it's taxed in the company or the corporate sense, as the scheme or plan is often a company.
Excellent. Good to know. So income derived from different sources, you've said there, Tim. I think it's important to highlight that. If you were renting part of your common property, or you were getting fees for some equipment lease that's on your common property, then that might be different. And of course, always be getting your own specific financial advice about these types of facilities and what the outcome would be for owners.
Absolutely, yeah. Don't take what you've watched on a Facebook Live video, as high quality as it is, Amanda, as something that is directly relatable to your own personal or your scheme circumstances. Certainly seek advice.
Now, you've mentioned, Tim, you through Strata Guardian are able to give our owners access to 25 different banks. So am I right that this is something different than to what Strata managers offer through their trust accounts? So we're really saying to owners, we're going to take the money from the trust account where you might be restricted to a particular bank and zero interest, and being able to invest that with one of 25 different banks, earn you some interest, and also take on the administrative burden, I think you said, of that investment. So you're managing it through a different bank, a different account than the Strata manager and their trust account. Have I got that right?
That's right, Amanda. Yeah, so I guess from an administrative side, we look after all of that, and with obviously it's the system that was sort of put in place, and the like, if you want a better word, it's like a cash platform that we've engaged that helps give us the opportunity to then get out into these lender and financial institutions. Shouldn't call them lenders. I suppose they are sort of lending the money, or being lent the money. The idea there is that we've got a number of different solutions. So from a Strata manager's point of view, we've got quite a streamlined solution for them in order to then share the work that we do or offer it to their clients. Or on a committee level, we have a separate solution as well. And it really boils down to around the identification and anti-money laundering sort of requirements for these term deposits. A crucial thing to note is that there's no intermediary cash risk at all. So what we're doing is facilitating the term deposit, providing the bank's details for the money to come across from the OC's bank account, for example, directly to that bank. And then when the term is finished, it goes straight back in there again. So it's not being passed through any other financial institution. It's going directly to the bank or the financial institution that's been selected, just as a key point of difference there. And I think from a cleanliness point of view, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
What about protections should things go wrong? I think we have an understanding that if our money is in a trust account, then those who are managing that trust account have fiduciary obligations, that we are protected by the government if that money should go missing. Do we lose those protections if we're taking money out of the trust account and putting them at one of these 25 banks?
Yeah, simply put, no way. Yeah, no, absolutely not. So everything that we provide any bank that's in our panel is protected by what they call, colloquially known as the government guarantee, or the more formally known as the financial claims scheme, which for those who are probably aware of it, but yeah, it was sort of kicked off in 2008, sort of post-GFC, to shore up confidence in the bank. It's available to individuals, trusts and self-managed super funds and things like that. Crucially, yeah, a couple of points with the financial claims scheme is that it guarantees up to $250,000 in the event of a failure of the bank, and that's a federal guarantee amount. And one thing you do have to be a little bit careful of is it's per bank. So when you're sort of setting up, and they take this on board for anyone who's sort of using or taking advantage of these terrific term deposit rates personally as well, you may, an easy way around it obviously is to spread, if you've got larger amounts, is to spread it around a number of financial institutions, and therefore you're continuing to get that cover. A little trap that you need to be a little bit careful of, though, is that some big banks have a number of smaller entities that you might be dealing with. I'll give you an example is Bank West, which is owned by Commonwealth Bank. So if you've got an account with Bank West and with the Commonwealth Bank, you only get that coverage once, just as a takeaway. So it does pay to sort of do a little bit of work in exactly who's sort of sitting behind it, because that's ultimately counts as your sort of one level of cover at that sort of senior end, or that ownership bank, just as a takeaway. Yeah. But outside of that, look, obviously a terrific scheme, underpins, our reliance and our confidence in the Australian banking system, which is probably one of the best run in the world. And look, a lot of people in the financial services and in the banking world don't ever, or hope never, that the financial claim scheme's ever triggered. And look, as we've seen through even the most recent pandemic, where there was enormous asset price collapses and all sorts of uncertainty in the air, our banks remained rock solid through the whole thing, which I think is a testament to the way that they're run. However, you never know.
Tim, the last time we spoke, I had a number of owners, community members, managers reach out to me, and I know you did as well, wanting to find out more about how this all works, and particularly what their obligations were and their responsibilities were as committee members, potentially making these decisions to invest large amounts of owners' funds. Not their funds, but some of their funds personally, of course, if they're owners, but other people's money in particular ways. A little bit different to if I was taking my money that only belongs to me, is used for my purposes, and deciding to invest it when I'm acting as the secretary of my Strata committee and saying, great idea, let's put 100 grand in one of these banks with Tim's help. I understand and appreciate that committee members are nervous about making those decisions. And a question that I was asked is, do we need a general meeting resolution? Do we need approval from other owners? And I'm not intending for us to cover all of that today. That's another reason why we say that committees should be going and getting their specific legal advice relevant to their situation and their state. But are you able to speak generally to that, Tim? Is that something that you work with the committees and help them to overcome maybe that challenge?
Yeah, look, thanks, Amanda. It's a good question. I think there's probably a little bit of a combination of answers in state by state, and certainly we've done a lot of work with a leading national strata practice on getting some advice around our managed products, the ones that sit in the market, and I think that that was crucial on the basis that it is it was a newer product in the market, and it hadn't really been done before, still hasn't been done before, being the only ones in offering this purely to the strata space. On the term deposit side, I guess it's probably an easier conversation on the basis that there's a pretty good chance that term deposits have been used in the past for that scheme or that plan, and so as long as obviously people are happy that things like we mentioned, the financial claims scheme is still available, it's I see it largely as the same but better sort of solution. If you've got the ability to go out to market at the right time or when you need to, and get the the highest paying bank that's hungry enough for the capital to give you the best return over the term that you're comfortable with. We've got the ability, or we do have template motions for our managed side that we're happy to share if people need to do something. And obviously they've been put together by lawyers, not by us. But the idea there is that if people wanted to use those or needed to use those and didn't have their own from previous term deposit decisions, perhaps, or something like that, happy to make those available.
And thank you for making that distinction. It's an important one, that maybe where there is some nervousness about investing owners' funds in the ways that we were talking about in our earlier conversations last year, Tim, that starting with a term deposit or looking at term deposits is a good it feels like a safe way if you have a conservative committee or conservative community to start.
Look, absolutely. Yeah, look, I think the key thing at the moment, particularly at the moment, is that, and as I mentioned before, with the rapaciousness, I guess, in a way, of some of these newer banks, or smaller banks that are now really wanting to get going, fill up their capital war chests so that they can attack going forward in the lending area that they do. This is a perfect time to review what you're getting at the moment, essentially, on your Strata savings. Happy to always, we've got, if you head to our website, strataguardian.com, we've got a table of our current best market rates that's updated quite regularly, almost a few times a week at the moment, because things have been rising so quickly. So you're welcome to check that out. Take it back, see if obviously it can be matched with a current provider, and if not, feel free to get in touch and we can take it from there.
Excellent. And we will put that link there in our comments. Rochelle will put it in. And we've also got a link to Strata term in particular, Tim. So if anyone wants to have a look at that term deposit option, did they need to have 100 grand to put in a term deposit to make it worthwhile? Is something less worth putting on term deposit?
Yeah, look, another great question. Look, for mine, different banks essentially have different minimums, and I've seen them as low as 5,000, and reasonable rates, that is, as low as 5,000. So, look, it would probably come up. It would depend on the committee and whether or not it's worthwhile doing 5,000. For some, it could be, and we're happy to help. Other ones are out at a minimum of 100,000, but then you also can expect some pretty close to top of the market rates for those larger amounts as well. So look, it's probably just a matter of getting in touch. Absolutely happy to have the conversation, get the ball rolling, provide some pricing. I guess the key things that we need, everyone's going to want the best price, so that's a given. But the amount that you are looking to potentially start something with or invest with, and also an idea of term. And once again, we're happy to add value around the shoulder side of the term if it seems like there's better pricing above or below, say, the 12 months or whatever it is. We do also offer, just one final thing as well, was for rollovers as well. So at the end of the 12, say for example, a 12-month term, we'll get in touch with the committee or the strata manager, the key person or people, and let them know that it's rolling off. Normally give them a month or so to know or to work out what they want to do. But we have also got the ability to roll into another market-leading term if required, and that's obviously very easy once the relationship's been struck up and there's very little paperwork outside of sending off a confirmation email or two. And so that's just another piece that we can do once people are in the system.
Excellent. Now, Tim, I think you were planning to, I'm not sure if you did because unfortunately I wasn't there, but at the SCA National Conference in Melbourne a few weeks ago, you were planning to be talking about Strata term. Have you had some preliminary feedback from managers or at that conference, some questions, some ideas that you might want to share with us today?
Look, absolutely. Look, I think we had a fantastic response, really. So we set ourselves up a stall there, and I do apologise to anyone who came along from out of state. We had our coldest day of the year on the opening day of the conference in Melbourne. That was bitter, even for a Melbourneite. But look, the point of it all was everyone was in good spirits, and for those that did pop past our stall that we had at the conference, some terrific conversations, and you can really see, I think, from a strata manager's point of view, the eyes lighting up, saying, "Okay, yeah, this is a problem that I've been sort of facing over the last few years, and I'd like to take it to some of my clients." And we have, obviously a number of strata managers putting it out there, and we're having some great conversations at the moment as well. I think, the key takeaway from a manager's point of view is probably just removing some of that administrative burden. There was a few that dropped past that sort of said, "Oh, look, every now and then a committee might say, oh, look, I've seen a rate at so-and-so bank." And it does become difficult for them on a single basis to then strike up a relationship with that bank for that particular building. And I see Strata term really as an opportunity to still get to that result, but without the headache from the manager on the administrative side. Yeah.
Yep. Good work. All righty. Well, thank you very much, Tim, for joining us for another Friday Live and sharing what's new with Strata Guardian. I'm looking forward to how this continues to roll out across our various Strata schemes. And I'm sure our viewers, our listeners here today will be in touch if they want to find out more. strataguardian.com is the website. Is that the best place for people to go there, Tim?
That's right, Amanda. Yeah, just head over to the site. We've got bucket loads of information there, but also don't hesitate to drop in, and there's a contact us page. You can put in some details. You can organise a call back at an appropriate time. Often people, I think, we're watching shows like yours over the weekend, and so you can just book in a call back at an appropriate time next week or whenever suitable. Or obviously we can go over email as well if you want some pricing or just wanted to get a bit of an idea of how it all worked. I'm more than happy to chat around that and take it from there.
Excellent. Well, I am going to stick around here for a few minutes longer, but I will let you out into your Friday evening, Tim, rugged up as you need to be, and I will catch you next time. Thanks for joining us, Tim Fuller.
Wonderful. Yeah, thanks again for having me on, and thanks everybody. Have a great weekend for those watching in. Terrific.
Thanks, Tim. Tim Fuller from Strata Guardian, letting us know what he's up to. Always innovative, something new going on there with Strata Guardian. Do reach Tim if you want to find more about managed investments of your owners corporation or now term deposits. And indeed, I want to reiterate that you should be getting your own specific legal advice about making these approaches and making sure that you have any legal requirements crossed off in your relevant jurisdiction. I am just heading over to these comments here. I just want to acknowledge Emiliana, who's come in and is thanking Rochelle. I mentioned I have mentioned Rochelle's name a few times today, helping out in the background here and getting Emiliana online. Good to see you. And Emiliana's going to go check out podcast episode 317 about disability access and discrimination in Strata. Do that, Emiliana. Cheryl is saying, thank you, Amanda and Tim. Great information. Excellent. And Edward also saying, thank you there. Great. Now, I want to remind you all, in case you missed it, there's lots of you who were coming on in about halfway through our live here, that there is a webinar next week on Wednesday, the 22nd of June. That is a webinar all about how to set up a successful virtual team. We will have our Strata Manager special guest, Natalie Fitzgerald, who is setting up her own virtual team at the moment. We will have Sean Brown from Strata Staff, who has for a number of years been helping Strata managers across the country set up their virtual teams, and also myself sharing some insights from my own practice and having worked with a virtual team in the Philippines for the last 6 years. Special shout out to Rochelle and Christina. We'll be sharing for an hour from midday on Wednesday, the 22nd of June, how we do that. Some of the mistakes that we might have made along the way and how you can avoid those. Strata managers, if you're looking for innovative ways to improve your productivity, to become that trusted advisor, which is where I really think you need to be heading in this new stage of professionalism, and making sure that your back office is fully covered by a strong team, then you want to check that out. So the Pro webinar is free to our Pro members. You'll know who you are, and there's a registration link in your inbox for you. The webinar is $97 for our members. If you do want to find out about upgrading your membership to Pro, feel free to send me an email and I'll fill you in on the details. amanda@yourstrataproperty.com.au. If you're not a member, there is a price for the webinar. I don't want you to go and pay that though. I want you to go over and grab yourself a $47 membership, and you'll be able to access that discounted member pricing for our Pro webinar next Wednesday. And excitingly, I will be in Sydney on the 7th of July, an in-person event. It's been a little while. It has been a little while since I have walked the floor, put my good shoes on, I didn't say good pants, good shoes on, and been there with you face to face in person for an hour and a half to share Strata knowledge, resources to improve your community living, to make life more peaceful, more profitable for you in Strata. 7th of July for Waverley Council. It is the Smooth Moves event. We have the Eventbrite link for you to register for that free event. Rochelle, we might just pop that link in here on the comments as well. We've had quite a few, lots of interaction here on Facebook here today. I'd love to see you all at the Smooth Moves event on the 7th of July for Waverley Council at the Margaret Whitlam Centre in Waverley. I'm going to be doing a bit of work over the next few weeks putting that event together for you to make sure that we can deliver lots of value for you there on the night. Zlato is saying thank you. Petra is saying great, thanks. Ron is going to be in touch, which is awesome. So good to see you all here today. I'm going to go head off into my Friday night and do a little bit of relaxing. I hope that you do the same, and I will look forward to catching you all next time. Have a good weekend, everyone. Bye-bye.